Il est à Montréal pour présenter son tout dernier film Devil's Not. Hollywood PQ a rencontré le réalisateur canadien Atom Egoyan.
It's this extraordinary story. I think it's first and foremost like this dark mystery based on a true story about this unresolved crime. This, 20 years ago in Arkansas, 3 8-year-old boys were found murdered, naked, mutilated, bound by their own shoelaces, submerged in a swamp in Arkansas. And there was nothing in the crime scene that indicated a human presence. There was no footprints, DNA, blood, no branches were touched. It was very supernatural. And it's about a witch hunt ultimately. Like there's no hard evidence, but the community wants so much to believe that it's these kids.
There are so much images of this case, so many documentaries that have been made, and some people might say that it was not necessary to make a dramatic version of it. What would you respond to these people?
Have you seen the documentaries? Most people haven't seen the documentaries. I'm getting very frustrated by this response because it comes from journalists and people who go to film festivals, but this film is really designed for a bigger public, and you can do with drama things that you can't do with a documentary. The documentaries have an agenda. They're trying to prove other people who might have done it.
How do you transform the facts to fit the production restrictions?
That's a great question. That's at the core of it all, isn't it? Like, what do you do with what you see, or what you think you've seen, or what you've been told? And those are the questions that I find really haunting. And cinema is a very interesting way to deal with it because you're shown things, and those things that you're shown are the result of decisions that filmmakers make, and some of it is you feel it's real all the time, and yet there's always an agenda. There's always some reason why you're being shown that, and how you assess it and what the conclusion you come, that's at the core of what interests me about cinema. And this was a very challenging film because there are images that are very real. You can see them online now. You go to this site and you can look up West Memphis 3 and you can see these very, very graphic images. So everyone knows what happened at the crime scene, and everyone knows the details of the suspects' lives, but no one really will ever know what happened in that forest. And that to me is very compelling. What
part does the director play between the scripts and the documentaries and the facts?
The writing comes in the way you're editing, and we spent about a year, like way longer. I mean, it was unbelievably long editing process, and so that's where I really, yes, there's the input that you have in the first draft in terms of, wanting, Chris Morgan, and this detail wasn't really in the draft, which I found when I read the book. The suspect that kind of was let go. There were certain things that you're dealing with when you're doing your draft, but then I think it's really about how you're structuring the story in the editing process.
I believe some of the cast were in contact with the actual people they were personifying on screen. That must have been such a weird experience for the crew, or...
I think it made it for a very rich experience in terms of all the cast, coming with stories of what they'd found in their conversations with the real people, and being very excited about that, and we all really enjoyed discussing it. But at the end of the day, my job is to concentrate on the performers and not what they need to do for the research. So your fear is that the actor's going to meet the real person, and the real person's going to say, "Oh no, the divorce didn't matter," and then that affects your dramatic interpretation. So that's your fear, that they're going to come back and say, "Well, the divorce didn't really matter for them," and you go, "Well, it's not really significant. It matters for your character. That this is how you're feeling." And that is not, it's kind of irrelevant in terms of the grand, the scale of this story.
You seem to have a really special connection to Montreal and Quebec in particular.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time here. Like my family, when we came to Canada, everyone moved to Montreal. So I know the city really well. I was discovered here, I think. Yeah, in '87 I showed my second feature, and it was like a really big event for me. Okay. So I always loved coming back.